Be happy not because everything is good, but because you can see the good side of everything. A very good morning to you, my dear students. Let's begin today's topic, periodic classification and periodicity. Nomenclature of elements with atomic number greater than 100. Usually, when a new element is discovered, those discoverers used to give a name. So based on the IUPAC nomenclature, and which will be approved by the public, and it will take some time. So by that meantime, some temporary names are allowed for those discovered element. Those temporary names, how to name those elements temporarily, was given by IUPAC guidelines. Let's see what are the guidelines given by that. The first point, the name was derived from the atomic number of the new element using a following numerical roots. Let's see what are the numerical roots. If the atomic number is 0, we can say the root word is nil, 1 un, 2 bi, 3 tri, 4 quad, 5 pent, 6 hex, 7 sept, 8 oct, 9 is n. And its abbreviation is the first letter N, U, B, T, Q, P, H, S, O and E. So the next one, you can if the number is 1 and 2, just you need to add these two, UN and BI, UN and BI. Next at the suffix you have to add IUM. So unbium, BIUM, unbium. That's what IUM is added as a suffix. Another one, if there is ENN plus nil, ENN is nothing but 9, nil is nothing but 0. If the atomic number is 90, then the name is going to be ENN, NIL. So the total thing will be ENN, 3N is getting. So if there are this way, then you have to strike out this N. One N has to be striked out. So ENNIL and the suffix will be IUM. Likewise, bi plus IUM, 2 I are there, so this I will be cancelled and the name is bium. Tri plus IUM, tri, this I will be deleted and the thing will be trium. Then the symbol for the element. So once the name is, for example, 101, the atomic number, newly discovered element, and its discoverer are given, the name is Mendelevium. Symbol is MD, but till the name is approved by everybody, we will be calling this by a temporary name, that is nothing but 1. 1 is nothing but un. 0 is nothing but nil, and 1 is again nothing but un. So nil unnium. Next one, nil bium, nil trium, nil quadium, nil pentium, etc. Likewise, all the up to 101 to 118 elements are given. How to name those elements in a temporary manner. The other one, how to write its symbol, temporary symbol. That's nothing but the first letter of the numerical root. The first letter for 1 is nothing but un, the first letter is U, and 0 is nothing but nil, the first letter is N, and next one is again un, U, so UNU. The likewise UNB, this is called to be the temporary symbol as well as the temporary name. Next one is evaluate yourself. So here the question is, the element with atomic number 120 has not been discovered so far. So what would be the IUPAC's name and symbol for this element? Predict the possible electronic configuration of that element. Just now before the slide we have studied how to name a newly discovered element. So according to that, the name is atomic number is 120. You know, 1 is un, 2 is bi, and 0 is nil. So unbinillium. So the name is unbinillium. So unbinillium, and the first letter is un-U, bi B, nillium N. So this is the name and this is going to be the symbol. The next one, the electronic configuration. So you had to write the electronic configuration. For that we must follow the Alpha principle. You know that the electrons are filled in the increasing order of its energy level. S orbital will occupy maximum 2 electron, P orbital 6 and D orbital 10, F orbital 14 electron. So here this 120 element I am just going to fill the electronic configuration. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d10, 4p6, 5s2, 4d10, 5p6, 6s2, 4f14, 5d10, 6p6, 7s2, 5f14, 6d10, 7p6, 8s2. So you can add and count the total number. You will get the configuration. Look at that. This is 2. This is nothing but 1s2. This 8 is nothing but 2s2, 2p6. This 18 is nothing but 3s2, 3p6 and 3d10. So likewise it is arranged. So this is going to be the electronic configuration. You can copy this in a problem note and fill it with 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2 completely using this guideline. Then in the book back, the question number 33, there is a question: in what period and group will an element with atomic number 118 will be present? This is 120 before this 2. So here they end with 2. So that is nothing but S2. So it is a S block element, and to S2, so it is going to be the second group element. So this one 2 number before that. 2 number before that means it's noble gas. That 118 belongs to the noble gas group. Noble gas means 18th group, and the period number is going to be 7. So for that answer, like this, you can try the answer book back 33. In the modern periodic table, there are 7 periods as well as 18 groups. 7 periods means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 periods, and there are 18 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 groups. This is what according to the modern periodic table, and as well as it states that the arrangement of elements in the periodic table are closely related to its outer electronic configuration. You know, when you consider this hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium and cesium, francium, you can find outermost electronic configuration is NS1. Hydrogen 1s1, lithium 2s1, sodium 3s1, potassium 4s1, rubidium 5s1, 6s1, 7s1. Likewise, when you come to this, the outermost configuration is NS2. N is nothing but the principal quantum number, that period number, okay? And S is 2, NS2, beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium and radium, where 2s2, 3s2, 4s2, 5s2. So, the elements are grouped based on the outermost electronic configuration. The element having the similar outer shell electronic configurations are grouped into the same group. That is what explained based on the modern periodic table. So let's see how many elements are present in the periodic table, how many periods are there, how these what would be the common electronic configuration, etc. That is the variation of electronic configuration along a period. Along a period means that is first period, second period, third period, fourth period, from left to right. That's what along a period. So let's see in the period number 1. There are 7 periods. In the period number 1, filling of electron in the orbital, and you know the electronic configuration, it starts with 1s1. So period number 1, there are 2 electrons, that is 1s1 and 1s2. So only 2 electrons we are filling. So hopefully there are only 2 elements in the first period. What are those 2 elements? Hydrogen and helium. Hydrogen 1s1, helium 1s2. The first period, as 2 electrons are entering into the s orbital, there are 2 element. Then second period, the electrons started filling at the 2s orbital. It starts from 2s1, 2s2, the next go to 2p orbital, 2p1, 2p2, 2p3, 2p4, 2p5, 2p6. So p orbital 6 electron, s orbital 2 electron, as a whole it's 8. So the number of electrons are said to be 8. Number of elements are said to be 8 element. And it starts from lithium. Lithium, next will be beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. Next we will come to argon. The end one will be argon. Argon will be filled with 2s2, 2p6, 8 electrons. And come to the third period, where it starts filling from 3s orbital. 3s1, 3s2, 3px1, 3py1, 3pz1, 3px2, 3py1, 3pz1, 3px2, 3py2, 3pz1, next 3px2, 3py2, 3pz2. So as a whole, the 2 electron from the s orbital, 6 electron from p orbital, there are 8 electron. It starts from sodium to neon. Sodium 3s1, neon 3s2 to 3p6. Come to the fourth period, it starts filling from 4s orbital. 4s orbital, there are 2 electron. S orbital occupied 2 electron. Next 4s orbital, there is 3d. You know the maximum electron occupied at the 3d is 10 electrons. So 10 plus 2, 12. 12 plus next level is 4p. There are p orbital can occupy 6 electron. Totally 18 electrons are filled. Hence in that period 4, there are 18 elements. It starts from potassium to krypton, as well as inside that there is another term come to 3d elements. This 3d element starts from scandium and it will end with zinc. Scandium is here. Scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc. So this is called as 3d series. So there are 18 elements in that, starting from potassium, end with krypton, in between the d block element. Next, come to the fifth period, it starts from 5s orbital. After filling the 5s orbital, we will fill the electron at the 4d orbital, which is the penultimate shell, innermost shell. You know this 5 is nothing but n. So 5s and n minus 1, that is what the penultimate shell. N minus 1 is 4d. So 4d orbital, next 5p, totally 18 elements, starts from rubidium and end with xenon. In between there are 4d, 10 elements, that is starts from yttrium and end with cadmium, 10 elements. Next come to the sixth period, where the electrons are filled at s orbital, s orbital 2, f orbital, you know, 14 electron. This is nothing but 5d orbital. 5d orbital, 10 electron and 6p, that is 6 electron. So totally you can count it, that is 32. That is 2 plus 14, 16, 16 plus this 10, it is 26, 26 plus 6, that is 32. So there are 32 elements, start from cesium and end with radon. In between that you can look at that cesium, next we are filling at barium, next we will fill at lanthanum, next to lanthanum cerium, and it extend up to lutetium and it has 14 elements. These 14 elements where the electrons are entered into the 4f orbital. So this is called as f block element, or it can be called as a inner transition element, because within this is called as the transition element. Okay, transition element means a series which is lies between the s block and the p block element, which is transition between s and p block element. Within the transition series there are two series of elements, so this is named to be inner transition element. This inner transition elements are 4f block element and 5f block element. This 4f block element starts from lanthanide, so we can call it as lanthanoids or lanthanides. And 5f, that is 5f means the last period. There are 14 elements. Here it starts from actinides, so it is called as actinides or actinoid series. This also having 32 elements, stand from francium and end with say 7s2, 7p6. That is 118 atomic number. This is about the variation of electronic configuration along a period. Elements of a group will have similar electronic configuration. Already in the previous video slide we have seen that. So elements having similar outer electronic configurations are placed into the similar group. Then based on that, these periodic table where the elements are classified as s block, p block, d block and f block elements. It is based on the orbital in which the last electron enters. That is, if the last electron enters into the s orbital, we can call it as s block element. If it enters to p block element, it is p orbital, it is called as p block element. D block element, if it enters into f orbital, then we can call it as a f block element. So there is a general electronic configuration given for all the 18 groups. First group, its configuration, first group means hydrogen to francium, its configuration is ns1. N is nothing but principal quantum number. Then group number 2, its configuration is ns2. Group number 3, its configuration is ns2, n minus 1, d1. N minus 1 means if the group number is 4, 4 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3d1. then this is ns2 n minus 1 d2, and if it belongs to fifth group, the general configuration is ns2 n minus 1 d3, and sixth group ns1 n minus 1 d5, and this one you studied why it is ns1, all other else ns2, because in the sixth the sixth group 1 2 3 4 5 6 chromium, in the last lesson you studied, its configuration is 3d5 4s1, because half filled and completely filled orbitals are more stable. Because of that, one electron from the s orbital jumped into d orbital, so its configuration is ns1 n minus 1 d5. Next is ns2 n minus 1 d5, ns2 n minus 1 d6, so on. 18th group has the configuration ns2 np6. It's a stablest configuration, so these are called to be the elements under 18th group are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon and radon, are called to be a noble gas or inert gas. Then the elements from 13 to 18 group together, ns2 np1, because the electron enters into the p orbital, all these electrons, last electron enters into the p orbital, so we can call it as p block element. From group number 3 to group number 12, the last electron enters into the d orbital, so you can call it as d block element. And these two are s block element, and the f block element, the electrons are enters into the f orbital. If it enters into the 4f orbital, we can call it as lanthanoids or lanthanides, and if it enters into the 5f orbital, we can call it as actinoids or actinides. So already I said, based upon the last electron enters into the orbital, it can be s block, p block, d block and f blocks. Let's see about s block element. Group number 1 and 2 in the periodic table are called as s block. 1 and 2 are called as s block element, as the last electron enters into the ns orbital. Hence we are calling it as a s block element. This s block elements are two groups, group 1 and group 2. Group 1 elements are otherwise called as alkali metals, and group 2 elements are otherwise called as alkaline earth metals. Alkali metals are hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium. This hydrogen is something, though it come under the group 1, it has some abnormal behavior. Okay, so all these are called by alkali, and this is called as alkaline. Alkaline earth metals are nothing but beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium and radium. These are soft metals. Normally these metals are soft, which you can easily cut with a knife even, and possess low melting and boiling point and low ionization energy, and it is highly reactive. Normally the sodium metal will be kept under kerosene, because when it is exposed to air it will be exploding. So that much it is easily reactive, highly reactive, violent in reactivity. So highly reactive and form ionic compounds. One better example, sodium chloride. Sodium belong to 1s block element. It form a common sodium chloride, which is known to be a common salt. Its nature is ionic, because when it is dissolved in water, it ionizes into Na plus and Cl minus. It's an ionic compound. Then highly electropositive in nature, and most of the elements imparts color to the flame. It is highly electropositive. If I ask you the oxidation state of the 1s block element, it is +1. 2s block element, it is said to be +2. So highly electropositive in nature, highly metallic nature. As well as this element in its free state, or when it is in the molecular state, it impart color to the flame. When you take a pinch of either sodium chloride or potassium chloride, or a sample of that, and burn that into a non-luminous flame, it turns into different colors. If lithium imparts crimson red, this is crimson red. Sodium gives yellow color, potassium gives pale violet color, rubidium give violet, and cesium give bluish color. Likewise here you can see strontium and calcium. Calcium crimson red, and this barium, it is apple green. But the radium is the radioactive element. So these all gives the impart color to the flame. The next about the p block elements. Group 13 to 18 are called as p block elements, or it is otherwise called as representative elements. General electronic configuration of this p block elements are ns2 np1 to 6. Group 16 and 17 are called as, 16 is called as chalcogens and 17 is otherwise called as halogens. Group number 18 its configuration is ns2 np6, where the filled electronic configuration, which are otherwise called as inert gas or noble gases, and which is high electron gain enthalpy, and ionization energy of this p block elements are greater than the s block element, form covalent compound. S block element form ionic compound, this form a covalent compound. More than one oxidation state in their compounds. You know that S block element have only one oxidation state, the 1s block element plus 1 and 2s block element plus 2. But when you come to this case, these can form more than one oxidation state. That is, sodium can form sodium oxide and sodium peroxide. So it all depend upon. Then chlorate, etc. So many compounds it is formed. Phosphorus can form phosphorus trioxide, phosphorus pentoxide. Likewise, many compounds are formed with different oxidation state. In phosphorus trichloride, one oxidation state, phosphorus pentachloride, another oxidation state. Likewise, it form a compound with a different oxidation state. Next, about D block elements. Group number 3 to 12 are called to be D block elements. It's otherwise called as a transition element. Why it is called as transition element? Because it lies between the highly electropositive S block element and the least electropositive P block element. So, or else the highly electropositive S block element and the highly electronegative P block element. Because of that, it lies between that, so we can call it as transition element. And the general electronic configuration of this D block elements are NS1 to 2. Some element will have the configuration of NS1, some will have N2 configuration. So that's what NS1 to 2. N is nothing but principal quantum number. N minus 1, D 1 to 10. Then it shows more than one oxidation state. Look at here, scandium, its oxidation state plus 3, but titanium has plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5. Come to manganese, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, plus 6, plus 7. So zinc has only one oxidation state, plus 2. Copper, you know, cuprous, cupric. And you know ferrous, ferric, etc. Likewise, so it has a variable oxidation state, and it form ionic compound, covalent compound, as well as the coordination compound. You know, S block element form ionic compound, P block element form covalent, but D block element form three kinds of compound, either ionic, covalent, or coordination compound. Then they can form interstitial compound and alloys which can act as a catalyst. This can form vanadium pentoxide and etc. And those this is one of the compound. Okay, so those can act as a catalyst, you know, alloys as well as catalyst. Gold alloy, gold with silver, or gold with copper, and so many alloys, zinc with tin and etc. So many alloys are there, and it has high melting point and are good conductor of heat and electricity. This is about the D block element. Next, F block element. If the last electron enters into the F orbital, then we can call it as F block element. The other name of F block element is called as inner transition element. So we call it as an inner transition element because it forms these elements lies within the transition series. So we are calling it as an inner transition element. And depend upon the electron enters into the 4f orbital or 5f orbital, it can be divided into 4f block element and 5f block element. 4f block elements are otherwise called as lanthanides or lanthanoids. 5f block elements are called as actinides or actinoids. Lanthanides, its general electronic configuration is 4f 1 to 14, 5d, 0 to 1, 6s2. And actinoids, its configuration is 5f 0 to 14, 6d, 0 to 2, 7s2. And most of them are metallic in nature. It has high melting point and mostly colored. The compounds of this lanthanides and actinides are colored. And variable oxidation state like transition element, these elements also have a more than one oxidation state. You can see that plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, etc. This is about the F block elements. As we learned about periodicity, periodicity is nothing but the physical and chemical properties of the elements are the periodic function of their atomic numbers. So there is a periodic trend in a periodic table. Let's see what are the periodicity. One is about the atomic radius, ionic radius, ionization enthalpy or ionization energy, electron gain enthalpy or electron affinity, electronegativity. Normally in the periodic table, when you measure the atomic radius, ionic radius, when you move from left to right in the periodic table, the atomic radius and ionic radius are getting decreases. So likewise, when you move from left to right in a periodic table, the other three things called to be ionization energy, electron gain enthalpy and electronegativity, all these three things are increases. Atomic ionic radius decreases, but the other else three things are increases, and the reverse when you move from top to down. Let's see that detailedly. Atomic radius. Atomic radius is defined as the distance between the center of its nucleus and the outermost shell containing the valence electron. So let's take an example of nitrogen here. The nucleus neutron 7 and proton 7, and the electron is K shell 2 electron, and then there is L shell. L shell there are 5 electron, that is 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. So this is the distance between the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell, that is L shell. This is K, this is L shell. That is called as the atomic radius, and it was said to be 0.7 angstrom. Now look at this case where there are three shell, K shell, L shell, M shell. So distance from the center to the outermost up to M shell. This is the atomic radius. Now this it is not possible to measure the radius of an isolated atom directly, and because most of the atom in the earth exist in the state of molecular state, and some elements are existing in the crystalline form or ionic form and etc. So here, except noble gases are existing as Ne, Ar, krypton, not in the combined state. It is existing in the elementary state, free state. But the sodium, that will be present as Na, and it is packed in a metallic crystal, many number of Na together packed in a metallic crystal. Now this chlorine, homonuclear diatomic molecule, it is a covalent molecule. So atomic radius freely for an atom you cannot calculate directly other than noble gas, but this atomic radius can be calculated from the covalent radius as well as from the metallic radius. So let's learn what is covalent radius, what is metallic radius. So covalent radius is defined as the 1/2 of the internuclear distance between two identical atoms linked together by a single covalent bond. That is, this covalent radius we are calculating for a homonuclear diatomic molecule. Homonuclear diatomic molecule means two similar atoms, that is Cl2. Both are similar atoms. So for this molecule, we are just going to calculate the covalent radius, and this internuclear distance, that is, these are the two atom distance between the two nucleus can be measured. This can be calculated by an experiment, X-ray diffraction studies. And here for calculating the covalent radius, that is the radius of chlorine atom, they had given an example, chlorine molecule, and its internuclear distance is given to be, the experimental internuclear distance is said to be 1.98 angstrom, but here it is given in picometer. So you know that dCl bond Cl, that is internuclear distance between chlorine to chlorine, is equal to RCl plus RCl. You know that radius of one chlorine plus radius of the other chlorine. So you can write dCl bond Cl is equal to 2 into radius of chlorine. So you can get RCl can be equal to dCl bond Cl divided by 2, and the value is given, it is 1.98 angstrom divided by 2, you will get 0.99 angstrom. The formation of covalent bond involves, normally this is a covalent bond, right? So here the atomic orbital of chlorine and the atomic orbital of this chlorine will overlap and form a covalent bond. Due to that only this molecule is existing. So when the covalent bond is formed, there is a overlapping of atomic orbital, so it reduces the expected internuclear distances. Actual internuclear distance, you can look at this is a single atom. When two atom joins, there is a particular distance from this, but when it form a covalent molecule, that means it overlap completely. When it overlap, you see this atom comes little closer, somewhat beyond, and it overlaps, so the distance is getting decreases. So the covalent radius is always shorter than the actual atomic radius of an atom. The covalent radius of heteronuclear diatomic molecule. The previous slide we have seen that homonuclear diatomic molecule like Cl2. But in the heteronuclear diatomic molecule, how to calculate the covalent radius? It was given by Shoemaker and Stevenson method. So here the atomic radius of heteronuclear diatomic molecule is taken to be calculated by using the internuclear distance between A and B. A and B, these two are different atoms. So I am representing internuclear distance as D, A bond B. So the formula to calculate the radius of an atom is called to be D A bond B is equal to RA plus RB, that is internuclear distance between A and B are equal to radius of A and radius of B minus 0.09 into XA minus XB. This XA is nothing but the electronegativity of atom A and XB is nothing but the electronegativity of atom B. So the calculation of covalent radius of hydrogen. So in hydrochloric acid, you know, HCl. So here HF and HCl is written. Look at that, hydrogen is smaller atom and chlorine is bigger atom, and HF also, hydrogen smaller and fluorine is said to be bigger atom. So here hydrogen chloride is taken. Hydrogen chloride, the internuclear distance is given to be 1.28 angstrom. So we are going to substitute into the above formula. Internuclear distance is 1.28 is equal to RA is nothing but radius of hydrogen and RB is nothing but radius of chlorine minus 0.09 into XCl minus XA. Here XA is electronegativity of A. A we are just considering it as chlorine, electronegativity of chlorine minus the electronegativity of the hydrogen. So here 1.28 is equal to radius of hydrogen plus this radius of chlorine. Already in the previous slide we saw that internuclear distance in chlorine molecule is 1.98. So divided by 2 you are getting 0.99. So you are just substituting the radius of chlorine, 0.99 minus 0.09 into this electronegativity of chlorine, it's constant 3, and electronegativity of hydrogen, it is said to be 2.1 in this molecule. So you can subtract these two. When you subtract these two, you will get 0.9. Multiply these two, you will get 0.081. So 1.28 equal to radius of hydrogen plus 0.99 minus 0.081. When you subtract these two, you will get 0.909. So radius of hydrogen is equal to 1.28 minus 0.909 is equal to 0.317 angstrom. So there is some correction in the textbook, that is instead of 0.99 they had given 0.09. So you can make correction in your textbook. Okay, this is radius of hydrogen can be calculated by using Shoemaker and Stevenson method for the heteronuclear molecule. Value is 0.317 angstrom. Under atomic radius there are covalent radius and metallic radius. So here under covalent radius, how to calculate the atomic radius of homonuclear diatomic molecule and heteronuclear diatomic molecule we studied. Now how to calculate the atomic radius in a metallic crystal. So let's find out the definition of metallic radius. That's nothing but it's defined as 1/2 of the distance between two adjacent metal atoms in a closely packed metallic crystal lattice. So closely packed metallic crystal lattice, here atoms are arranged like that. In this we can able to find out what is the radius of one metal atom. Example, they have calculated for the solid copper, its internuclear distance is given to be 2.56 angstrom. So the radius of copper is equal to 2.56 divided by 2, that is equal to 1.28 angstrom. Periodic trends in atomic radius. Variation in periods. When you move from left to right in a periodic table, the atomic radius decreases. So the reason is, as you move from left to right in the periodic table, the valence electrons are added to the same shell. That's important. I have taken the second period element, that is lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and fluorine, where the extra electrons are entered into the same shell, that is K shell is 1s2 and L shell, here 1 electron added, second electron also going to the L shell, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, every electrons are entered into the same shell. When it enter into the same shell, when the electron enters, simultaneously the addition of proton to the nucleus. So here the proton also getting increases. When the proton increases, the nuclear charge also increases. As the nuclear charge increases, it has a greater tendency to attract the electron towards itself. That is, the electrostatic force of attraction between the valence electron and the nucleus increases. When it increases, when the nucleus have a strong pulling power, the size is getting decreases. Look at here, it was in 150 picometer, become 112, 98, 77, 75, 73, 71. So when you move from left to right in a periodic table, as the electron enters into the same shell, there will be the nuclear charge increases, and the increased nuclear charge pull all the electron towards itself, hence the size is getting decreases. Let's see about effective nuclear charge. So we all of us are familiar with the word nuclear charge. So what is nuclear charge? If I ask you, the nuclear charge of sodium is said to be 11, magnesium it's 12, chlorine is 17. That's nothing but the number of proton. So sodium nuclear charge 11, magnesium and so on. But there is a word, new word. What is effective nuclear charge? So let's see the definition of that. The net nuclear charge experienced by the valence electron in the outermost shell. So you know, in the outermost shell there is valence electron. Okay, consider this as the valence electron. So what is the nuclear charge experienced by this valence electron? That is, the net nuclear charge experienced by valence electron in the outermost shell is called as the effective nuclear charge. Is all the nuclear charges are attracting, or all the nuclear charge concentration is towards the outermost shell, outermost electron, or not? That is what called to be how effectively the nucleus attracts the valence electron. That is what called to be the effective nuclear charge. So how to calculate this effective nuclear charge? It can be calculated by the formula called to be Z minus S. Z is nothing but the atomic number, and S is nothing but the screening constant, or you can call this a shielding effect. Okay, let's see that shielding constant. So let's see about what is meant by screening constant. As we all studied, as the nuclear charge increases, it will pull the electron towards itself. That is the electrostatic attraction between the nucleus and the outermost electron. But beyond that, there is another force called as a repulsive force between the inner shell electron. Look at this diagram, you can understand clearly. This nucleus wanted to attract the inner shell electron as well as the outer shell electron. So when this nucleus is about to attract the outer shell electron towards itself, there is a repulsive force existing within the shell. That is, see that between the shell, that is, the inner shell will be repelling the electron present at the outer shell. So this electron repel that, and this electron repel this, and this electron repel this. Likewise, there is a mutual repulsion. That is nothing but the repulsive force between the inner shell electron and the valence electrons lead to the decrease in the electrostatic attraction force acting on the valence. This nucleus wanted to attract that, but that attraction will be decreased by the repulsion between the inner shell electron and the outer shell electron. Thus the inner shell electron acts as a shield between the nucleus and the valence electron. So this electron, which is the first shell, so I am representing it as a K shell. So the electron present at the K shell will be acting as a shield between the nucleus and the outer. Effective nuclear charge can be calculated by a formula Z minus S. That is, Z is atomic number and S is screening constant. This screening constant can be calculated by using a rule called to be Slatter's rule. So let's see the Slatter's rule. The first step in the Slatter's rule, write the electronic configuration of the atom to whom you need to calculate the effective nuclear charge. So then you rearrange it. So after writing the configuration, you rearrange it in this order, that is 1s in one group, 2s 2p in another group, 3s 3p in another group, 3d alone in one group, 4s 4p in another group, 4d alone in one group, 4f in one group, 5s 5p, etc. This is the first one. Second step, identify the group in which the electron of interest is present. For example, if you are going to calculate the screening constant for this 5p electron, then this group is, you have to identify the electron for which that screening constant you are supposed to calculate. Then the electron present right to this group. I am selecting this group for whom I am going to calculate the electronic configuration. Whatever configuration come beyond this, other than this, those configuration value will be left out, because the nucleus can be shielded only by the inner shells, not by the outer shell. Okay, hence that value will be neglected. Then each of the electron within the identified group, I am going to identify this group. So whatever electron present in this group, for example, if my configuration is 5s2 5p6, I am taking the 6th electron. Other than the 6th electron, there are how many electrons present? Here 5, here 2, so 7 electron. All the electrons whose contribution is said to be 0.35, that is what n. This group I am selecting, so I am taking it as n. So the number of electron I have taken here, there is 7 electrons. So 7 and its contribution is 0.35. So you can multiply it. Then n minus 1. This is n shell, this is n minus 1 shell. So this n minus 1 shell whose contribution is going to be 0.85, and n minus 2 shell whose contribution is going to be 1. Whatever is there for n minus 2, that contribution is going to be 1. That is what thing. Then 0.30 for 1s electron. If we are calculating for helium 1s2. So the second electron of helium I am calculating. So the other than the second electron, 1 electron present. So its value is said to be 0.30. So for 1s electron 0.30, not for these cases. Okay, it's for helium alone, this one. Step number 3, shielding of inner electrons. Each electron within n minus 1 group value is 0.85 unit charge. So n minus 1 group, it value 0.85, and each electron within n minus 2 group, the value is said to be 1. If an electron of interest belongs to d or f orbital, if the electrons are present at the d or f orbital, electron other than the electron of interest, for example, if there is d5 electron, 5th electron I am choosing. Other than the 5th electron, 4 electrons are there. So that 4 electron, its value is said to be 1.00 unit nuclear charge. If an electron of interest belongs to d or f orbital, each of the electron left of the group of an electron of interest shield 1 unit. Then summation of all the shielding effect gives the screening constant S. We have seen the variation in periods. When you move from left to right, the atomic radius decreases. But variation in group, that is top to down. When you move from top to down in the periodic table, the atomic radius increases down the group. The reason is the extra electron enters into the new shell. Take an example of alkali metals, that lithium and sodium I have taken. Lithium, its atomic number 3. 1s2 2s1, K shell and L shell, the electron goes to L shell. Next to lithium, the element is sodium, its atomic number 11, 1s2 2s2 2p6, then 3s1, K shell, L shell, M shell. So here the distance is from nucleus to the L shell, here the distance is from nucleus to the M shell. When you go to the next, lithium, sodium, potassium, the electron goes to the N shell. So the extra electron added into the new shell, hence the radius is also getting increases when you move from top to down. Let's see the ionic radius. Ionic radius is defined as the distance from the center of the nucleus of the ion, not atom, ion, up to which it exerts its influence on the electron cloud of the ion, up to where the electron cloud is present. So center of the nucleus to the outermost shell of an ion is called to be the ionic radius. So we have compared sodium and sodium plus. Na, where the shells are 3 shell, it loses 1 electron. The electron at the third shell is lost. So only 2 shells are present, K and L shell. So here for a cation, the radius is getting decreases. So look at here, cation radius is getting decreases. Sodium, its radius 190 picometer, but Na plus, its radius is 102 picometer. But in case of anions, look at this anion, atomic radius sulfur 102, S2 minus 2 electron getting added, its ionic radius is increases. So for anion, the ionic radius increases than the respective element. 184. Chlorine 99 picometer, but Cl minus, it's 181 picometer. 97 picometer, 181 picometer. So cation radius will be smaller than the respective element, but the anion radius will be bigger than the respective element. The ionic radius of univalent crystal can be calculated by a method called to be Pauling method. According to Pauling method, he assumed that the ions in a crystal, the ions present in a crystal are perfect sphere and they are in contact with each other. So here I have taken cation and anion, they are touching each other. Okay, this is the assumption of this Pauling method. Hence the radius will be, that is this is the radius of anion, this is the radius of cation. So the internuclear distance between the cation and anion will be equal to the sum of the radius of cation and anion. So d is the internuclear distance, Rc plus Ra minus is radius of cation and anion. And second assumption is that the radius of ion having noble gas electronic configuration is inversely proportional to the effective nuclear charge of the ion. So here when I consider cation like Na plus means Na atomic number 11, Na plus means it lose 1 electron, so its atomic number, its number of electron become 10. So you have a configuration organ, its atomic number is said to be neon, its atomic number is said to be 10. So this sodium is in configuration with a neon configuration, that is noble gas configuration. So the cation or anion with noble gas configuration having the radius inversely proportional to the effective nuclear charge of the ion. So radius of cation is inversely proportional to the effective nuclear charge of the cation. The next one, radius of anion inversely proportional to the effective nuclear charge of the anion. You know what is effective nuclear charge, can be calculated by Z minus S. Now dividing the equation 2 and 3, 2 by 3, you will get Rc plus by Ra minus is equal to Z star, that is nothing but Z effective A minus divided by Z effective, that is effective nuclear charge of C plus. Now on solving the equation 1 and 2, 1 and 4, you can able to calculate the radius of cation as well as the radius of anion. Thank you students.